Hi guys, can we start? So welcome to 2018's first meetup. I hope everyone had a wonderful holiday season. I see a lot of unfamiliar faces. Could you please raise your hand if you are the first timer here, like you've never been here? Nice, couple of people. Welcome. I would like to start with news. First of all, I would like to thank everyone who filled out the survey. It provided really great insights on where to steer the meetup, which direction should we take. Second, I would like to remind everyone that we have a dedicated Slack channel where we share articles, insights. Actually, I give away a free ticket to the conference, and it's really worthwhile to connect there. There are more than 60 people on it, and I hope it will expand as well. Third, we got accepted to Google Developers Community Groups, which is almost like GDG, and I hope that we can get more international speakers, and with their help, we can expand the meetup as well. After reviewing the survey results, I got into, I should talk a little bit about presenting and about topics. First of all, I introduced last year the two types of talks, like lightning talks, which are shorter, maybe for beginners, 50 minutes long. And of course, there are normal talks like 30 minutes. Some of you replied that the only thing holding you back is that you don't have a topic. That's why I gathered some basic and some advanced. And they are really like easy one like Xcode or iOS tips and tricks, and maybe advanced like testing, performance, live coding, and so on. So the next thing is, how should you submit a talk? It's easy as 1, 2, 3. I mean, you can reach out on every social platform like Twitter, GitHub, I don't know, meetup.com, or just come and talk to me. And I'm always here to help. Let's talk a little bit about .Swift. .Swift is a Swift conference happening on Monday in Paris. Last year, our fellow meetupper Károly got their presentation. This year, it's Bruno. He will talk about ARKit at a lightning talk. The best?
Károly as well.
No, last year was Károly.
He's again there.
Maybe, yeah. I don't know. So the great thing about it is that we have a 20% discount, and there are also free spots. So if you wanna, feel free to join them. And that was it. Does anybody have any questions? No? Then a quick technical break, and Levente will continue with AppCode.
Please give it up.
So welcome everyone, it's so good to see that many of you arrived today. Our first topic is AppCode at Skyscanner. I'm an engineer at Skyscanner here in the Budapest office. I'm leading a small team who is responsible for achieving app growth and app growth tooling. That means that if today we have X amount of users, we are shooting for that tomorrow we'll have 10x and the day after 100x. So that's us. We are using all kind of growth activities to exploit these opportunities. Yeah, so let's jump into the topic first. What's AppCode? AppCode is an IDE for iOS or Mac OS development. It's a complementary tool for Xcode. JetBrains is the company behind AppCode. If you are familiar with the IDE ecosystem, then JetBrains is the company behind IntelliJ. So they have a core platform, a core IntelliJ IDE, which they open sourced, but they build on top of that open source core the premium features, and they sell their IDEs for all the languages and all the platforms. So they have IDEs for .NET or Java or Go or Objective-C and Swift. So yeah, Skyscanner, we use AppCode. It's not a free tool, but I highly advise for you to try it out. It has a 30-day trial, but then you can decide if it's worthwhile for you to subscribe. So first, when you download the AppCode, you will see that if you load a bigger project, that it just won't load. It just stucks there. So the problem is that it's a JVM-based IDE, and it has settings. So the JVM has settings, and you need to input those settings at startup. So first, when you notice that it just doesn't finish the loading, you need to go into the Edit Custom VM Options and increase those limits. For example, the Skyscanner iOS application, you need at least 8 GB of memory. So it's a lot. And then I also highly suggest to take this little indicator in, that show memory indicator, because then you will see that why the ID is not working, because you see that the limit is reaching the top. That means you need to increase the limit. So yeah, I prepared with a small demo. It will be highly improvisational. So yeah, if we just jump into this code base is a pod which we do not use in the Skyscanner app, but we wrote it for production. So it's kind of a good piggy to check out all the functionality. I will show some basic functionality, so don't expect anything more advanced because we don't have time for advanced functionalities. It's just a sneak peek, so you can see that it's a good tool. So first, what I see that lots of developers use the mouse. The whole idea behind AppCode and IntelliJ not to use the mouse because it just distracts you, and you need to like move your hands. If you are typing with 2 hands, and why do you need to move your hands? Why can't you use your keyboard to reach that functionality? So like everything in the IDE is built up in a way that you can reach that functionality via keyboard, or you can add the shortcut. So one advanced compared to Xcode functionality that you can just swap. I a lot of the time see that guys just select the whole line, they cut it and move it there. It's not the way here. So you can just move a bunch of code just by, I can start. Yeah, so now you will see that what I type at the bottom left. And I can move this code wherever I want. So for example, I just swap those, or I can move the whole. So it's intelligently moving the code. Then I can select, because then if you need to select something, you just go to the beginning and you start selecting, or you're just using advanced selection. But if you have a complex expression like this, then you can use the Alt and Up to select more and more scope. And it's also intelligently selecting the scope. It's also a really good performance improvement for your productivity. Then, if you are not familiar with the functionality, then you can just use the enter action or option name, because you don't know what you want to achieve, and you can just start typing whatever you want. And let's imagine I want to try this live templates feature. So I go here, and I can see there are lots of templates. I can add custom ones. Let's check it out. For example, this ProPay. This means that if I go here and I start typing ProPay, then I have this custom template that I can use, and it's intelligent, and it tries to fill the necessary information that I need. Also, if I have like a function here, let's imagine I have one more. I have this variable, and the name should be like 5.35. So what you would do with Xcode, if you want to extract this as a parameter, you need to change the signature of this function, and you need to fix it everywhere, because with Xcode, if you are trying to use a bigger project, that's usually the indexing is not that perfect, and refactoring just doesn't work. So what you can do here is I just use the Alt Up, select this, and I'm using another shortcut to extract it to a parameter, and I just give it a name, and then I have an extra parameter here. So it's just searching for all the usages of this, so all the callers of this function, and just injects that 5.35 to the call at the caller place. Also, what I can do is like I have again 5.31, and I select, and I can use like, okay, I want to extract it to a variable. Or I can extract it to a property as well with the similar shortcuts. It's kind of really good, and until you do not use this functionality, you just don't know how much you miss with this. Also, if I want to be more hands-on, I can come here, I can use this shortcut, the refactoring tool, and I can just rename the function, move, extract to an upper class, for example, to the interface or anywhere, basically. I can move this function. But what's really cool, I can change the signature, which means that I can freely, like up and down here, and I can rename the function, rename the selector part, and then it will again find all the usages and rename everything. As you saw here, I am using a tool. So you saw a pop-up here that, here, it's here. So I'm just tapping this, and as you can see, it's a plugin. So this IDE can be, so you can add plugins to this IDE compared to Xcode, which is like barely minimal. It can be configured in a barely minimal way. But for example, this plugin that I'm using, a key promoter, just whenever I'm tapping an action, it just shows a really intrusive pop-up to teach me what's the shortcut which I can use. And if I'm using that shortcut, then it's working with the shortcut as well. This is a plugin that you don't need to use, but I found it really useful. Then, what's a really good functionality as well, so if I just delete this code, I can use code formatting. So I'm just using this format, and it will auto-format all the code base. How will it format the code base? It has a configuration, and you can configure basically everything. Do you want space between the functions? Do you want like the columns to be in the new line or the same line? And you can configure basically everything. And with this little shortcut, you can format all your code base. So no more painful tab usage and space uses with Xcode. Yeah, if you wish to navigate between the code, you can just input any class name, and it will intelligently find. It should find, all the properties and classes. So you can search for files. Of course, it will be much faster. What's really cool about this IDE that it has a ton of integrations, including a terminal. Because if you are using Cocoa pods, usually just use Xcode. You need a terminal. You are switching between them all the time. But here you can. So here you can just use this terminal, and you can just say pod install, and it will install everything, and then the IDE can reconfigure itself with the new code. It also has built-in version control, which means that I can commit from the IDE. So the changes that I made, I can just commit them. I add the commit message, and same way, I can use the shortcut here. So if I'm just using Alt, then you can see that a little tick just is here. And if I would tap T, or I, sorry, then it would just commit this. And then also there is a plugin, because we are using GitLab as our source control system. There is a plugin for GitLab to create a merge request. So I'm just using another shortcut to create a merge request, and I'm done. I'm saving a ton of time. These were the basic functionalities that I wanted to show you. So let's jump back into the presentation. Hope you liked it. So let's evaluate this tool. So these are really basic areas that I brought up here. For example, if you want a more advanced IDE, then go for AppCode. If you need one tool for all, so you don't want to switch between your version control app and Xcode and terminal, then use this IDE. If you need real plugins, I mean, just the ability to be able to put any kind of logic into your IDE, use AppCode. If you need performance, it's not ideal. So as I said, you need, for our app, you need at least 8 GB of memory. That's not good. And it's also when you open the code, for example, after a pod install, so it can refactor the code base because it knows, so it needs to interpret that code, which means it needs to index everything, and that indexing takes time. Our code base is pretty big, and it takes AppCode to index the full code base around 15 minutes or so. It's not good. If you are more like a look and feel person, then as you saw, Xcode is fancier. Go for Xcode. What I do personally, I'm not using AppCode or Xcode only. I'm using both, and I'm switching between kind of them based on my task. If I need really like hard task and with lots of refactoring, I'm going for AppCode. If I need like a quick change, I might go with Xcode and just edit it in line. So thanks. That was all from me. I hope you liked it. I will be here after the other presentations, so please feel free to come to me and ask anything if you are interested. And also let me highlight our engineering blog, which you can check out. There are really cool articles, and our job portal as well, because we are hiring. So thank you, guys.
For David, will we talk about animations? Give it up.
Hi everyone, I'm David. I'm an iOS tech lead at Supercharge, and today I want to talk about animations. The reason why I wanted to do this presentation is because a lot of times when I'm talking with developers, they tell me that they don't really like to mess with the UIs, and especially animations. They don't like to fiddle with the pixels and the timings. And my goal today, hopefully, is to show you that it's not that hard, and you can achieve a lot of things with a few lines of code, and that it's not black magic. So let's check our agenda, what topics I want to talk about today. So first, I would like to talk about what are animations and what is it good for and why you should use animations. And then I will show you a quick example so you can understand what will I show you later. I will get back to this example while I'm talking about core animation. And then I will talk about core animation, of course, and show you that it's not that hard. And at the end, I will summarize my key points and have a small takeaway. So first, what and why? So animations are, in my opinion, are an essential part of mobile applications. And they create a great user experience, make our apps feel alive and interesting. Animations on iOS, luckily for us, are very easy to implement. So what is animation? Animation, it's very simple. It's just a property of a view that changes over time. So what is it good for? Animations are a good way to direct people's attention. For example, if something's happening on the screen, they can be aware of that, or if something changed in the background, or direct people's attention, of course, and keep people oriented, so where they are in your application or where they have been, and connect people's behavior to what's happening on the screen. And of course, animations keep the user engaged and make lasting impression, and I think that's what we all want to do. So what type of animations do we have? How can we achieve these? The most popular one is the UI kit animation. It's the easiest one. You can do small animations with this. It's the animate with duration. And they introduced this UI view property animator in iOS 10. It's basically a UI kit animation, but you can customize the animations more. And there are the view controller transitionings and the UI kit dynamics. They were introduced in iOS 7, and of course the core animation. So I will show you, at first I will show you my example. And actually, this was a screen. So I want to emphasize here that I think it's a little bit our responsibility as developers to know what type of animations can we do and what is easy to do. And because most of the time, if you are working with a big team, you are lucky enough to have a designer team, and they can do the animations, and you don't have to think about it. But in this example, we developed a mobile bank in Indonesia last year, and this was all of the requirement what we get from the design team. So this was a screen. You had to enter your PIN. There was this custom number pad, and of course these secured input fields with dots. We are all familiar with this on iOS. If they enter the wrong PIN, the text should turn into red, and they also sent us some custom loading animation, and that's it. So we sat down and implemented this, and this is how it looked like. So you entered the numbers. Of course, the little dots appeared. Wrong pin, the text turned to red, and then you enter the pin again, and we show the custom loading animation. It's great, and basically that's it. But I think it's a little bit boring. Even they have a designer team, but they didn't think of, because most of the time clients don't really know what type of animations are easy to do on iOS. So that's why I emphasized it, that this, I think, is a little bit our responsibility. So we sat down, because we were familiar with core animation, and we just added some little animations to the same pin pad, and this is our solution. So basically, everything is the same. These are just small animations. It checks your pin, and if it's wrong, the screen shakes, and then, of course, you type in the pin again, and at the end. So this was our solution, and of course, thank you. So let's talk about core animation. And so if you're writing an iOS app, you are using core animation whether you know it or not. Core animation sits beneath AppKit and UIKit, and is integrated tightly into the Vue workflows. And with core animation, most of the work required to draw each frame during the animation is automatically done for you with the core animation framework. And all you have to do is configure a few animation parameters, for example, the starting point and the end point, and tell core animation to start. And core animation does the rest. So at first, we need to talk about CA layer, because this is the base of everything in core animation world. So every UI has a CA layer. It's very similar to UI view, but more lightweight. So it has the same function almost. So add sublayer, insert sublayer, set needs layout, set needs display, etc. And it's more lightweight because it doesn't have to care about anything. It doesn't have to catch the user so that touches. And so its only job is to manage the visual content. And it has some visual attributes as well. For example, the background color, the shadow, and the borders. And it has information about the geometry of its content. So position, size, and even transform. You can also transform the CA layers in 3D. So before I show you some animations and how you can do that, we have to talk about the presentation versus the model layer. Because for a CA layer, core animation maintains two parallel layer hierarchy. And so the model layer is the state of the layer. It remains unintact. And the presentation layer is what is animating. So the layer properties do not reflect the active animations. So the layer remains there. There will be a new presentation layer, and that will be animating. And you can easily switch between the two layers. You can ask for the presentation layer or the model layer. And the presentation layer is very useful to interact with the layers while the animation is taking place. So you can get the real-time values during the animation. And if you want to do a heat testing, it's very good. So let's check what type of animations do we have in core animation. We have implicit animation and explicit animation. So if you are thinking, if you want to change the position of a view, and if you would do exactly this, then what would you expect? That, of course, the position is changed instantly. What happens if you change the position of a layer? Sorry about the video. So the position changed, but there was an animation, but I haven't write any code, just only change the position. This is called implicit animation. And when you are changing the properties of a CA layer, it uses the default timing, and it's 1 second. And it updates your model, actually. We talked about the model layer and the presentation layer. So when we updated the position, there was this quick animation, and the layer had this new position. And when is it good? When can you use this? If you don't want to write a lot of code, as you can see, that was just 1 line. And if the default timing works for you, for example, if you just want to change the opacity. But what is very important here, so the CA layers that are associated with the UI view, so if you get the UI views layer, it's not participated in the implicit animations. So it will be just updated instantly. So how can you change, for example, the duration for these implicit animations? There is this CA transaction, and you can set the animation for the CA transaction. And after you set the animation, you call the same line, just update the position, and the result is this. So what is this CA transaction? But first, what type of properties can be animated in a CA layer? A bunch of those: position, size, opacity, etc. If you go to the CA layers documentation, there will be a lot of properties marked with animatable, and those are these. So let's talk about CA transaction. CA transaction is a core animation mechanism for batching operations into atomic updates. Every modification to a layer must be part of a transaction. And these CA transactions can be nested into each other. And all implicit animation applied together as a single transaction in the next run loop. So if you set these parameters right next to each other, in the next run loop, it will be, so this transaction will be called and they will be animated. And you can change the duration of the CA transaction, the timing function, and of course you can disable the animation. And the other type of animation is explicit animation. It creates animation but leaves your model unchanged. So this is where the presentation layer, so this is where we have to talk about this presentation layer. So you have a layer and you add an animation, you will see the animation because that will be the presentation layer. But after the animation ended, your model layer will be at the same place. And when is it good for you? When you want to have more customized animations. And yeah, we have 3 types of explicit animation: CA basic animation, CA animation group, and CA keyframe animation. And I want to show you a quick example about all of these. But first let's talk about basic animation. This is very basic, of course. You can just set from the from value and the to value, or either the by value. And all of the interpolated points are calculated in the core animation framework for you. If we take a look on my example, this is a code from what I showed you earlier. So basically, we use 3 basic animations, and I think it's very easy. You just created a basic animation. You set the key path that what property of the CA layer you want to animate, and then you are just setting the timing function, the from value, the to value, the duration. And if you just apply this animation to a CA layer, you will see that it's moving. You are seeing that after the animation ended, the layer jumped back to its original place. This is why we see the presentation layer animating and the model layer hasn't changed. We had other base animations in our pimped. It's animating the opacity parameter, but other than that, it's exactly the same. We set the timing function, the from value, the to value, the duration, and you can just add it to a layer, and it looks like this. And it's getting boring now. We have a scale animation. It's a CA basic animation. We are doing exactly the same, setting the timing function, the from value, the to value, and the duration, and add this to the layer, and it's scaled. Very good. The second type of animation what we have is the explicit animation, is the group animation. It's very easy. It's just collecting animations, and the duration of the group animation, the timings clip to the group's duration. So back to our example, we had one animation group. We just added 2 base animations, one scale and one opacity, what I showed you earlier. We set the duration, and we have 3 more properties here what we set. The one is the auto reverse. We set it to true because we want the animations to play backwards after it finished. We set the repeat count to the greatest finite magnitude because we want to play this animation all the time. I mean, if you get back the response from the server that if your the pin was wrong or was it good, we will animate it again, and we add a little bit of offset for the begin time, so we have this small loading animation filling, and these few lines of code just did that. Our other group animation, what we had in our pimped, was the move and scale animation. It's just a group. We added the move animation and the scale animation and the duration, and the result looked like this. Our third explicit animation type is the keyframe animation. Keyframe animation uses either a path or an array of values, and you can add these keyframes, and of course the core animation framework calculates these intermediate frames for you. We had this in our example as well when we put the wrong pin, there was this shake animation, and we just create a keyframe animation, and we added 2 values. I forgot to put it here. I just moved the view to the left, and then I just moved the view to the right, and repeat it 2 times. And this is the result if I edit this keyframe animation to the layer. So let's talk about a little bit of timing. CA animation adopts the CA media timing protocol. So you can set the begin time, the repeat count, and the repeat duration. Either it's how many times you want to repeat the animation or how long do you want to repeat the animation. You can set the duration, if it should auto-reverse or not. And we have this new fill mode. This fill mode property determines if the presentation layer at the end is frozen or removed once the active duration, the animation's active duration has completed. And of course, most of the times we want to know if an animation ends. In an explicit animations word, we have this delegate, so we can get this animation did start or animation did stop. For implicit animations, you have to call this completion block on a CA transaction before you actually set the property. And that's it. So this is what I wanted to talk about today and show you that you shouldn't be afraid to use core animation because I think it's not that hard. And I think, as I mentioned, it's our responsibility as a developer to know these because most of the times the clients don't know what animations can we add easily. And you should try it out, the animations, and be more comfortable with it. And a few lines of code can make a huge difference. And I think you can just do it. And thank you for your attention. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer, but you can find me around and you can come to me personally. So thank you.